Thank you for listening to Games by Design, our podcast where we talk about our experiences with games and discuss what makes them effective, cool, and whatnot. I'm Nick. I'm your host for this episode. Joining me today are Aaron.
Nick, it is good to be with you and hear your voice.
Hey, you too. And Zach. Good to have you here.
Yeah, good to be here. Thank you.
He seems to be in a bit of distress.
You all right? You ready for this, Zach?
Yeah, I was just stretching, getting warmed up for the podcast.
All right.
Doing my calisthenics.
So we'll start with our jumping jacks portion. Each week we start by sharing recent gaming experiences, and then we hold a discussion about something that we find interesting. And then at the end of each episode, we each recommend a new game for each other and for you, the listener, to check out. We play what we want when we want, and we leave the news and reviews to everybody else who's good at that.
All those other people.
And some who are not.
and some who aren't, yeah. Once a month, we also have a special episode where we talk about a game that we've all agreed to play, and this month's game is Crusader Kings 3.
Woot woot.
And our discussion will be hosted by Zach.
Woot woot.
If you want to share in this experience and join the discussion, please feel free to play the game along with us. We're excited for that.
And we have videos on our YouTube channel of us playing that very game.
We do. So you can watch us mess around and have lovely misadventures. And there's some fun stuff there. So feel free to check that out. We'll get started with the gaming experiences for the week then. Aaron, do you want to start us off with that?
I would love to start. So we all know that I play a lot of games and I finish very few, at least, within the time frame of me playing them. And I was playing some other games, but then my time got consumed, by this little indie game that just came out. Not a lot of people have heard about it. It's called Cyberpunk 2077. It's a little RPG set in the future. Okay, it's a major game, super hyped. Everyone was going crazy for this game. Anyway, I've been able to play it. And again, this is not a review, so just an experience I had with it is the first moment in the game that I was able to just walk around the city.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, it was just jaw-dropping for me.
Really?
There was just this moment walking down the street, the sound that I was hearing, the kind of white noise of the city, the ambiance, the people around, just kind of how the crowds were, how everything looked, how it felt. Like I felt like I was in a city. Like I just instantly had these flashbacks to when I was walking around New York City, or when I was in Los Angeles, or even downtown in Salt Lake. Just it just captured that so well in a way that I haven't seen in another game. And so that experience, it was just crazy. The game itself, it's a brand new game. There's a few bugs. It's a bit of a mixed bag right now. But that experience, that world that it was able to bring me into, I just thought was incredible. So,
well, hey, that's incredible. That's super cool.
Yeah, that one looks neat.
Yeah, I'm real curious about that one. I'm curious to keep hearing about your experiences with that one.
Yeah,
for sure. I actually I recorded some video of me just walking around the city the other day. So maybe I'll share that.
Yeah,
that'd be great. A video called "Aaron Walks Around Cyberpunk 2077."
Perfect. Yeah.
Well, super cool. We'll move on to Zach, your gaming experience of the week.
Yes. So, I play Minecraft frequently, which I love.
Woot woot.
Woot woot. And and I built this town recently and named all of the NPC villagers in it because they don't come with names, and I think that's something that needs to be fixed. So I fix it by giving them names. And I get attached to these guys, even though they all behave exactly totally the same and make the same sounds. And don't really look like real people. Just kind of look like
those are the blocky guys.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. They're the guy, the brown Squidward dudes.
Squidward, that's great.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, but I was visiting. I was just stopping in one of my settlements the other day, and to take care of some business, and I noticed I flew in from above and landed on the roofs, and then I noticed that one of the guys was standing on the roofs too. And I said, "What are you doing here? What are you doing? I don't know how you get up here in the first place and everything." Anyway, his name was Berthier, and he was someone I had an NPC that I interacted with many times before. Even though interacting in Minecraft doesn't mean having conversations, it means trading with them and giving them emeralds and taking their emeralds and stuff like that. So whatever. I still care about them.
Yeah,
they're people to me in my brain. So I'm like, okay, well that's weird. So I get down, I do stuff, and then Minecraft nighttime happens and monsters spawn and stuff like that. But I figured that this settlement was safe because it was well lit and fortified and everything, and no problems. Anyway, I'm walking down one of the narrow streets of this place, and I see these two zombies walking towards me, and I'm like, oh crap. And then I realized that one of them was Berthier. I said, no, Berthier's a zombie. So he got zombified by one of the zombies. And I decided to, so I killed the other guy, the other zombie, because he wasn't a real person. He was just a zombie. Because I don't know where those zombies come from, but they're not villagers,
Maybe they're other players.
Yeah, they're other. Yeah, maybe.
Every time a player dies in another game, there's a zombie that appears in you.
That's wow.
They're made in creative mode, and then they split into the game part.
Yes, they do. It's weird. Anyway, so I killed the other one, and then I was like, okay, well, here's the thing. You can actually cure villagers who have turned into zombies. I didn't know how to do it, but I knew that if I captured him and kept him safe, I could probably get a cure and then bring it back to him and bring him back to life and everything. Mm-hmm. So I got ready to do that, and as I'm trying to do this, one of the town guards, the iron golems, sees the zombie problem and goes over there and murders him. And I was so upset. And it was cool in a way, because I felt like I actually, I don't know, Minecraft, it just doesn't have a problem wrenching things away from you. It's like, nope, that a creeper just blew up and destroyed the house you just built, or the NPC that you have grown to appreciate, and they're gone and you can't bring them back. There's no reloading or anything like that. It's just everything's permanent and you just have to live with it. And I went through the phases of I was shock and then denial and then anger at the iron. Yeah.
And then grief over your Minecraft character.
Yeah. And then I was angry at the iron golem and I wanted to take out vengeance on him, but then I was like, no, he was just doing his job. I can't be mad at him. And then I eventually came, to acceptance and realizing, okay, well, I can move on and the services that he provided can be replaced, and I will miss him, and I'll probably make a monument or a memorial to him, just because that makes it, it gives me some closure on the thing. But, anyway, sorry, long story, but that's my gaming experience this week. Don't ever let anyone tell you that Minecraft doesn't mean anything, because it's
that's
what
great.
You make of it,
I mean, if I can just say, I think that fits really well with what we were talking about last week with how you kind of make your game your own, or if a game kind of limits you in the kind of experience you have, how you can create that yourself and have that own personal interaction. So you're saying, oh, well, Minecraft doesn't name these characters for me. It doesn't really give me a way to really become attached to them. So I'm going to do that myself. And then when you come across a standard thing of Iron Golem killing a zombie, you allowed yourself to have an emotional attachment to that.
Yeah.
And it created a deeper, more fulfilling experience.
Yeah, I think it did. Yeah.
Man.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It also kind of ties into the last couple of weeks that we've been talking about with like choice and consequences and stuff. Like the consequences in Minecraft are pretty severe, actually. Sometimes, like you might die and lose all of the stuff you're carrying, and that's it. You know, depending on how that happens, and you might, or a raid might happen, and it will destroy the entire village population, and that's it. You cannot bring them back. You cannot undo or whatever. You know.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, yeah.
Oh, cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, my pleasure.
My experience for this week. So I was playing. I decided to try out A Plague Tale: Innocence by Asobo Studios.
Okay.
If you guys are familiar, I think you both are, but I'll roughly. It's like this survival stealth. The Last of Us like game, but in the bubonic plague. Zach and I have jokingly referred to it as The Last of Us bubonic plague edition. And so here was my experience. As I was playing, I noticed a lot of inspiration from The Last of Us, which I think is a wonderful game, and I have no issue with games taking inspiration from it. But I found that like every time I noticed some similarity, I was just reminded of how The Last of Us had done the same thing, and how I liked The Last of Us, and how much more I enjoyed The Last of Us. And so, like, just that, like, oh, The Last of Us did this better. And that's not to say that, like, Plague Tale doesn't have new ideas or interesting mechanics or compelling characters even, but they're just, like, were enough identical elements that I was constantly comparing the two in my head, and it was always to A Plague Tale's detriment, which I thought was a bit of a bummer. Because, like, I actually thought there was some still cool stuff going on, but it was constantly reminding me of a game that I liked better.
Yeah.
And so I kind of dropped it because just go think about The Last of Us instead.
Yeah, well, that was kind of my experience with that one too. I was like, oh, this reminds me of this is the same stuff in The Last of Us, which makes me want to play The Last of Us actually instead of this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is different, but like it's so much of it, so many mechanics and stuff like that are just constantly referencing that it's kind of hard to forget what game it's inspired by. So,
that's a hard hurdle for games to overcome, because games try to be original. They try to have their own thing, their own mark, to leave, in the gaming world. But then at the same time, they need to sell their game, and so they'll look at these games that were super popular, like The Last of Us, and be like, "Oh, well, everyone loved The Last of Us, and The Last of Us did this really well. So if we implement that into our game, it'll make it better, or people want to play it more, or we'll be able to take those things." And I don't know exactly what a game has to do to cross that bridge from, oh, this just feels like it's ripping off this game, or it just feels like it's too much like this game and it makes me want to play this game, to, oh, no, this is an entirely new experience. And I don't know, because if real quick, if I can just briefly touch on another experience I had, I was able to play briefly Immortals Phoenix Rising, which is a new Ubisoft game, and it is, even before it came out, it was being compared heavily to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
And in playing it, I think it's kind of a combination of Breath of the Wild with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but with a bit of its own touch. But there were moments in that game where I was like, oh, yeah, this is like Zelda, but not as good as Zelda. Or like, oh, I have wings that are kind of like a paraglider. Oh, but when I jumped with a paraglider, I felt the resistance of the wind and kind of the weight, and you feel it flow. And this is just kind of floaty, and I'm like feeling that. So I wonder if sometimes it takes, some of the general aspect of the mechanics for that game, but either doesn't add much to it, or actually takes away some of the depth that the original mechanic had. And that's why it feels just kind of a copy paste thing from another game. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it's the same thing in Plague Tale, but that is just, I see that a lot in these games, and it does seem to be a challenge for games to overcome.
Yeah, it's a really interesting. You bring up some really good points. There's a lot to be said about, like, games cloning each other or ripping off each other or just like adapting. Mark Brown's got a really good video just about like what defines a game genre, and he talks a lot about like how a lot of that kind of stuff, and like when a game really comes into its own and stuff like that. Something, check it out. And I think this would definitely be a really interesting discussion to dive more into ourselves.
Yeah.
But I wanted to shout out that video because I think it's great.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I think it's called "Do We Need a Souls-like Genre" or something like that.
Yeah. Game Maker's Toolkit. That's the name of that YouTube channel.
Yeah, thanks.
Because they need plugs.
Yeah.
And we do. And we're the ones to give it to them. That's what do we got, like 3 subscribers right now?
You're welcome, Mark.
What does he have? He has 1 million.
He has 1
million.
Are the 3 subscribers the 3 of us?
Oh, wait a minute.
Wait a second.
I think I saw my mom on there or something. We're getting there. This is the beginning. If I could,
please.
Just quick, off the just knee-jerk reaction to that kind of thing that we're just talking about is that I think that the reason that the Plague Tale game thing doesn't work for me, like the Last of Us elements that are in a Plague Tale doesn't work for me, isn't just that it's drawing a comparison between itself and The Last of Us. It's that these things don't really fit for me, you know. So like in The Last of Us, and I think that's the main problem, and like because I think that when it feels like ripping off or copying to me is when it feels like you took stuff in this game and put it in this game because you know it's popular and not necessarily because you understand why those things were in that game or what the point of them is or how to use them effectively. So like in A Plague Tale, well, in The Last of Us, you have like those rare occasional workstations where you can use the resources you've gathered and then, you know, upgrade your equipment and stuff like that. And it works super, super well because they've done a really, really good job of balancing, you know, the resources that you find, and then like, and then putting these workstations at rare intervals and stuff like that. And you're playing a game about these 2 people who are wandering through this dead society world, you know, empty shell of civilization where you're gathering resource and scavenging basically to survive. So that makes sense. You're scavenging in the game,
and so you're scavenging in the gameplay.
Gameplay, yeah, exactly. So in A Plague Tale, it doesn't work for me because, first of all, I think like the workstation tables are just altogether too frequent. Like I was like, I found myself going, oh well, I don't really need to use this one because I know there's going to be one around the corner, you know. and so like, yeah. So and other stuff too. It's a different story. You're not playing a zombie game anymore where you're traveling through the empty shell of civilization and trying to scavenge. Like, so it doesn't feel quite right when it does these scavenging mechanics and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that, to reiterate what I said, I don't think it's necessarily that it used stuff from a different game. I think that it used it without understanding why that was in there and then how to effectively do it. That's my take on it.
Yeah. I think that's great. I think that's well said. Well,
yeah, that's good.
We're going to get on to the discussion then, if that's cool. You know, the next discussion, I suppose.
Yeah.
Main discussion.
The main discussion. I've prepared a couple questions that I just love to hear you guys talk about.
It's always so exciting because it's like, ooh, what is gonna happen? I don't know.
And the secret ingredient is no.
You like Iron Chef?
Yeah.
Is that an Iron Chef reference? That's great.
Chocolate. So I want to know. I'll start with kind of a general question, maybe get a little more specific. I want to know how you feel as a player when you miss optional content in a game.
I think it depends on the content.
Well, in that case, have you had experiences where it was like no. I'm going to let you answer this question before I ask follow-up questions. Knee-jerk reactions. What do you think?
If it's like optional narrative or optional story, like optional character development, I feel really, if I get to the end of a game and it's like, oh, you had this option to develop this thing with this character, or to, do this whole thing that develops this, and I get to the end of the game, I don't know about it. Then maybe I feel a little cheated, or a little especially if it's a linear game where it's like, oh, you pass it back, and in order to go back, you have to play through the whole game again.
Mm-hmm.
Then, yeah, that's annoying.
Yeah, it tends to be bothersome. That makes sense. Is that good? Thoughts?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Aaron.
I'll just say, like, if it's an open world game and it's like, oh, I guess I can just go over there and get to that when I want to, or
yeah.
So like if it's there to get to, or if there's only one chance to like get it.
Even then, like if I don't even know it's in the game, and then it's like, oh, there's this really cool thing that you could have done if you knew about it. It's like, oh, I wish the game would have told me.
I wish I'd known that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it depends on the kind of game and what we keep talking about game focus and game experience lately. I think it depends on what the focus of the game is, because I'm playing A Night in the Woods right now, and I want to just milk everything out of that game. I want to go and talk to every single NPC every single day and get just, all of the pieces of the story and everything, because it's a game about these people, so that makes sense. And I think that would be similar in a game for me. Like we talked about The Last of Us a lot, like The Last of Us. Like if I felt like I missed important character stuff, I'd be really bummed out. But it also depends, like, because if I'm playing, like Aaron mentioned, like Skyrim or an open world game or something like that, it's like, nah, I don't need that. I know that I can have a fulfilling story my own way if I just do these things. Strategy games and simulations for me, like Crusader Kings 3, woot woot, are
you can't really miss out on anything in that game.
Or you miss out on, I mean, there's so much, you can't do everything.
The game just does things for you, and you don't really know what you're getting or what you're missing out on.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too, is that it's like in that one, it's like, well, yeah, I missed out on the opportunity to do something this way this time, but like, in 10 minutes, I'm gonna have gone through like 10 more important choices, or whatever, or there's always more in that game, and there's always like too much. So I'm not really worried that I'm missing out, and it's systemic too. So it's not like I'm missing a specific crafted narrative experience that the designers wanted me to have. I'm having the chaotic joy of life in this game, and it doesn't matter if oh well, I could have done that.
Yeah. So that kind of answers one of my next question, was like, have you had experiences where you were glad a game didn't ask you to engage with all of the content?
Like collectibles and stuff?
I guess so. Sure. Or do you feel slighted when content is hidden from you?
Yes. Sometimes. Yeah, there's my definite maybe.
Your definite maybe.
Well, we talked about this a little bit with Celeste, in that you have these collectibles in the game that it even encourages you to not even worry about if it, if you're not good at the platforming.
Yeah.
But then it kind of locks story content behind those collectibles.
Yeah.
I think another game, so a game with collectibles that I just decided didn't matter at all. Playing the Uncharted games, you have these treasures that you find, and when you find the treasure, you get a little ding, and it's like, oh, you found treasure, and you can look at your treasure, and it's like, oh, that's cool treasure. And if you get it, enough, I guess you can platinum the game, or get these achievements. But it's not like,
Mhm.
oh, once you get all the treasure, then you get the true ending of Uncharted, or
Yeah,
you get-
it's not like a
and you can
collectible
unlock
fun.
the expansion pack. Like, I don't know, maybe you get a skin or something. You can play as Nathan Drake.
Yeah, Donut Drake, whatever.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
called.
I don't know exactly the achievements for that.
Wait a minute,
But-
is this a thing? Is donut Drake a thing?
It was at least in Uncharted 3. It was like
It is a thing, yeah, and I think it
multiplayer.
might be if you 100% the game, or if you get like some kind of thing. And the treasures lead into that, but it's really easy to say. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't really affect my playthrough of it. It doesn't affect the story. I still get the complete game without that, and I don't need to, comb through all these levels trying to find this treasure. I played as like, oh, if I see the treasure, I'll pick it up because ooh, shiny. But it doesn't
Mhm.
really
Thank you, dopamine.
affect it. But when it is something more like Celeste or some other games where, and I actually, this seems to be becoming a thing where it's like you have the ending of the game, and then it's like, oh, but then if you 100% the game, then you get the true ending of the game. Or,
or in Hollow Knight, if you 112% the game.
Yeah.
112%.
You have to 112% Hollow Knight if you want, or you can. I think you can go up to 112% with that game.
I don't
know.
That hurts.
To do that.
I'm
I
not
don't
good at
comprehend
math, but that
mean.
frustrates me a little bit because I don't think that mathematically makes sense.
I don't think you have to do all that to beat the
ability.
game. But yeah. But yeah. So ignoring collectibles then, like disregarding stuff that's just there for like to like that doesn't have bearing on like the rest of the gameplay experience.
Yeah.
What if it's like narrative or like side quests or like character moments? I guess this is kind of more in story-driven games and stuff like that. But like if story or opportunities to engage with story, how do you feel about like missing that, or if that's hidden from you, or have you ever been glad that you didn't have to engage with story in a game or parts of a story?
Oh.
I had a thought.
Mm-hmm.
This is a spoiler, though, for The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt.
All right. Spoilers for the
Spoiler alert.
You guys have both finished that.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, spoilers for one of the greatest games ever made. Why are you listening to this if you haven't played The Witcher? Go do that. It's more important. Anyway. But anyway,
Our
so
family and friends that would listen to this right now wouldn't like it.
That's actually
that's
probably
fair.
true.
Don't play The Witcher, Mom.
Yeah, my mom's probably listening to the last episode being like, Zach loves the prostitutes in Witcher 3. What the crap is this about?
That's a joke. There's no prostitutes in The Witcher 3.
No, there's none of them. They're everywhere. They're on like every corner.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's nothing to do with them though. This has to do with the main thing, the Siri quest line thing that you're following along. I didn't know. What was the question? I want to make sure I answer this properly.
if you were ever either felt gypped that you didn't know about story stuff, or glad that you didn't have to interact with certain story beats or elements.
Okay.
Kind of. I mean, whatever you're saying, I'm sure is relevant. So, like,
Yeah.
if it doesn't fall into that directly, though, it's totally okay. 'Cause
Okay.
the idea is just to just facilitate discussion. So.
That's a good point. Okay, so I felt a little gypped when I was playing The Witcher 3 because at the end of the game, there's this thing that happens with Ciri where depending on interactions you've had with her up to that point, it determines how it plays out. And in that game, if you make quote wrong choices or whatever, then you can ultimately get a really dissatisfying ending to the hundreds of hours of gameplay that you've put into this thing, which is frustrating to me. Which would be frustrating to me, except that I kind of knew to expect this, and because Elise my wife had gone through and played the game before me and knew things and didn't want me to have to deal with the same frustrations that she did. Mm-hmm. So she gave me some heads up and stuff, and I was grateful for it. But I was also kind of bummed because I don't know if this is even really necessarily answering your question.
I think it's relevant. I want to hear what you're saying.
But because now I'm realizing like it felt like it wasn't optional content.
Well, yeah,
way,
yeah.
Because like and maybe that's my problem, is that like I had to play these certain interactions out a certain way, and the game didn't tell me that if I didn't, then I would have a really bummer of an ending, you know?
Because it's not just a different ending. Like with a lot of the Witcher side quests, you like have it could go this way or it could go this way, and there's some good and there's some bad and everything. Right. There's kind of an unquestionably terrible ending that you can get in The Witcher 3. Yeah. That's really unsatisfying.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the perspective.
Which is the end of the whole thing. You know, like the side quest, okay, I spent a few hours on this side quest, it's over. But this is like the whole thing, you know, and if it ends poorly, in my opinion, it kind of puts a bad taste in my mouth. But anyway, I don't know. I'm kind of rambling a bit, but I didn't know. Well, the game doesn't tell you that if you make certain decisions, it'll end a certain way, which is, you know, fine, except that it had very specific things for me that I had to do, and the rest of the game is really good about letting you like kind of think about, well, what do I believe and stuff like that, and then making choices like that because, you know, whatever. But the knowledge of it ending poorly if I do it wrong restricts my agency a little bit, because I don't want to do it wrong. And so I will do what they want me to do, even though this game is about making choices and things like that. I don't think that is quite an answer to your question, but it made me think of it. So hopefully that's not too off track. I apologize if it was.
No, that's all right.
I actually thought of an example from the same game of when I chose not to engage in a certain story element, and like it just worked for my playthrough. So again, talking specifics about the game, there's a certain character in the game named Kira Metz who kind of early on in the story tries to help you find Ciri, and you have this quest where you kind of follow her through this dark tunnel, and you get into this combat stuff, and you're looking for clues. And then when you get to the end of the tunnel, and then she has a second quest, was like, "Oh, Geralt, I'm looking for this lamp. Do you want to help me find it?" And during my playthrough, I was like, "Yeah, you know, I'm kind of tired. You know, you're kind of slightly annoying character, a little bit much." And I just passed up on that quest. I was like, "No, you can do it on your own." And I went, you know, did some other quests, and then, you know, I went back and visited her. She's like, "Oh, here's the lamp I found, and, you know, you can use it." It's like, oh, cool.
I didn't know that.
That's so interesting.
Because I remember that, and I was like, I don't want to hang out with Kira anymore. She's kind of annoying me a little bit, and I'm tired of crawling through these dark holes in the ground. But I don't want to miss out on this. And now I did it. I didn't know that. Funny. That's really cool that you didn't have to. I did it wrong, I guess.
It's funny that we all had this experience with Kira, because for me it was a little different actually. I showed up, I did all of that, I did some quests with her, and then afterwards she's like, "Hey, you want to go on this date sort of thing?" And it doesn't have to end romantically. Like I knew I didn't want to have a romantic relationship with this character, but I also just didn't want to go on the date at all. And I was like, "Nah, I gotta look for my daughter. I don't have time for you, lady. I gotta look for Ciri." And I just said no, and I failed the quest right there. It's, you know, quest failed, flashed across my screen, and I just didn't. And I was actually totally fine with that. I mean, I thought it was silly that it was like, bum, 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 you made the wrong choice, kind of.
Yeah.
But I also didn't care, and I went on with my playthrough and was totally fine with that. So I was glad I didn't have to engage with that. It's actually something that happened a lot with The Witcher. I would pass up side quests. There's also so much of it, though.
Yeah,
there is some. It's just some really kind of funny flavor text. I know, you know, we'll have to deep dive into The Witcher at another point. But in that same quest with the date with Kira, so my choice, I went on the date, but then I didn't engage romantically with her. And then you have your journal that Dandelion kind of writes what's been going on, how it's going.
Yeah, that's great.
And Dandelion wrote about, you know, Geralt not having a romantic encounter with Kira. He was like, showing unusual restraint, Geralt deciding to be friends.
That's really funny to comment on that.
It's like, oh, the game really wanted me to get with Kira. It's like, no, like, you know, you got Yennefer. Who's this Kira person? Like, I don't.
I love how all of the romantic interests in the game are sorceresses. You know, like, I mean, like, I don't know. I haven't done a Hearts of Stone or anything like that, and Anyway,
Mhm.
but
in the main game,
But
it
then
sounds.
the main game, they're all sorceresses. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's a beautiful freaking game.
Yeah.
Everyone should play it. It's so good.
Yeah,
all sorceresses, and you got a blonde, a brunette, and a redhead. So.
I know. Yeah,
I
they
know.
just-
It's just,
yeah.
I want to make sure they got their faces covered.
I ended up with the redhead, and I ended up with a redhead in real life too. So maybe that says something about me.
Oh yeah, Team Triss all the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Heck yeah.
Oh yeah. Jennifer is.
She's alright. She's a little
She's
high
kind of
maintenance.
a jerk. All right, that's not what.
This is not
another
a Witcher episode. I'm
If
sorry.
you've never played The Witcher, this is going to be really confusing. So.
Sorry. But yeah, so those then were in instances where we kind of all passed up on some significant content.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe not you, Zach, but I know that I imagine there were other times in that game. I don't know. Were there other times in that game? Let me ask the question instead of assuming, where you passed up on content, like you just didn't do a quest or you didn't fulfill stuff. Because I feel like The Witcher's pretty good about presenting you with stuff.
Which is usually really good. Like honestly, that's the only time it bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
Was that well, which is kind of significant because it's like the main quest thing. Yeah, but like, but for the rest of the game, I was like really impressed with how it let me like pass stuff up and not feel bad about it. Because I think that and I do this thing a lot of time when I'm talking about games. I compare it to, is this the way it works in real life? Because that's important to me to a certain extent, that like games about things should be somewhat accurate when they're portraying these things. And I think in real life there's a ton of side content that you can just ignore. There's a ton of optional stuff that you just don't need to engage with, and life goes on and you can still be happy and have a satisfying existence, I think. And I think that The Witcher did that well. So
you feel like in life you also do kind of have moments of critical choice that like define a lot of things in your life, or that kind of make a choice or kind of a point of no return, and you don't always know what those are. That's a good point.
And I think The Witcher is really cool in that sense because it doesn't pass judgment on stuff. It just presents consequences, and it really allows you to like make your own, draw your own conclusions from it. Which I really like.
We really need to have an episode about that game. I think it's just so good.
Anyway. Yeah. So I mean, like, do you feel then like that you can have a complete experience when you don't engage in or miss a substantial amount of content from a game? Or do you feel like you still have it? I mean, it kind of sounds like you're both leaning in that direction.
Yeah. I was thinking about another game. I was thinking about this moment I had in Bloodborne. And so Bloodborne, it's a Soul style game, and the way that the Soul style games tell their story is often more in the environment and kind of in the NPCs you talk to. And you can kind of choose your progression, and then you just kind of fitting puzzle pieces together. I remember there was this one moment I'd played through this area in Bloodborne, and it was pretty standard fighting these little dudes over and over again until I was strong enough to then take on the boss, and then take on the boss, and continue on. But then and I guess this happens sometime when I watch someone else play the game. I was watching them play the game, and there was this entire little side quest in that first area that I just didn't even know about. And it involved talking to somebody through a window. I didn't even know you could talk to people through a window. The people I talked to were outside. But there was this whole, like, really involved and tragic quest from this mechanic that I didn't even know about. And then I tried to like go back and do it, but then I was like, oh, since I'd already done this, like it didn't quite have the same resolution. And so it was kind of an interesting mix of the game. Was like, oh, I like how it kind of has this free storytelling, and none of the Souls games hold your hand at all. But the fact that it was like,
unless they're about to rip your arm off.
Even if there's just some kind of indication that I could talk to people at certain windows, then I would at least see, oh, this window has a light on. I can talk to somebody, and then know that there might be some kind of encounter there. So yeah, I guess as examples like, if there's side content in a game that you don't know about, like sometimes I pass by, but when it's like side content that's locked behind a mechanic that you don't even know about, or that you don't realize is part of the game, that could be kind of frustrating because say you could get like halfway through the game and you discover it's like, what? Like I could have been having these interactions the entire game and I didn't know about it. Because like for example, another game, Assassin's Creed Origins is this gigantic game. I played through the entire story. I maybe explored 25% of the map.
Wow.
But I finished the game and I was like, yeah, that was a full experience. I feel like I got the entirety of what that game is. I understand there's definitely side quests I missed. There's definitely areas I missed, but it's probably all going to be kind of around this same thing that I've experienced, the different specifics. But yeah, I don't know, just that one moment of, this thing that I didn't expect in this game, that I didn't even really know was a thing in this game. Because like it was this quest, it was like involved this little girl, and it was connected to one of the bosses that you had to fight, and it kind of had this like tragic backstory to the boss you were fighting and how you beat it, and then like it leads into another thing with the little girl that's really tragic, and it's just like it added so much to the opening part of the game, and you could just run past it and not even know it's a thing.
Yeah. Were you gonna say something, Zach?
No, I'm still thinking. It's tickling a thought in my brain, but it's not ready to come out yet.
Oh, okay.
It'll just barf out later.
Okay. I look forward to it.
I will projectile vomit my opinions on you at a later time.
That's interesting, Aaron, because like, it's kind of a thought I'm having around that. I feel like I don't know. I didn't make Origins. I don't know the people who made Origins. I mean, I know kind of general idea of who made it. Ubisoft. If Ubisoft is a person, then anyways.
Mr. Soft.
Mr. Ubisoft. Mr. Soft. But like, I kind of get the impression that game is intended to be played the way that you played it. I don't think they're expecting most players to explore the entire map and to do every single side quest. So it's almost like it's built to be missed. And actually, what's interesting is my understanding with the Souls games and Bloodborne is it's actually kind of built similarly. Now it's a little different, but like there are so many quests in the Souls games that if you don't know about, you just fail. I remember playing Dark Souls 1. All of these characters I liked just kept dying, and I didn't know why. And I found out later that there were ways to prevent all of this, but it didn't like present any of that to me. And so there's these hidden quests that you're not actually sure how you engage with.
You prevent it by not attacking them when you try to talk to them.
There's definitely that.
Number one, yeah.
Turn around.
I always face away from them when I'm talking.
And then they become your mortal enemy for the rest of the game.
yeah. But I was able to. I mean, kind of jumping back to last week's episode a little. I was able to kind of role play it and just go, this is my story through this world. Sure. And what's cool is it's different than other people because, like, since you can't know exactly how your path is going to intersect with these NPCs, you might be there when they're about to die, or you might not. And so it's a really unique experience for everybody. And I really enjoyed playing the Souls games blind because, as in, I don't wear a blindfold, but I don't want to know what happens before I don't want to know what quests there are, because I really enjoy the experience of feeling like it's a tailored narrative for myself. I know people who play the Souls games with a walkthrough on the next tab because they want to make sure they get everything, but that kind of stresses me out.
Yeah. No, and for sure, and I think it is a thing. If I didn't know that was a thing, I wouldn't feel like I missed anything.
Yeah.
The game, and I wasn't playing with a walkthrough. It was kind of what I enjoy doing when I play a game that I really enjoy. I kind of like to go back and see other people's experiences with it to see if, they have like similar reaction or things. But yeah, when it's a thing, it's like I didn't even know that was a thing. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Like that's kind of game. I mean, I know in the first Dark Souls games there were entire levels that are hidden that you can miss. And not, it's like, there's an invisible wall you have to go through to find this area. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Hollow Knight, where like I think there's something like 30 bosses in the game, and I think you need to beat 8 of them or something like that to beat the game. It's something ludicrous like that.
Wow.
It's bonkers.
You try to beat less bosses in that game.
Sorry, I hope I didn't spoil anything for you there.
No. I've been stuck in like the same area of that game for like a couple of months. So.
Oh yeah.
I think I'm ready to barf now a little bit.
Barf.
So
Barf on.
Here's my opinion. It's actually, since you brought up Hollow Knight, that's actually what I was thinking of as we've been talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
Because Hollow Knight kind of had this unknowable quality to it, to me, as I was playing it, that I adored.
Mm-hmm.
I loved feeling like I couldn't know all of the secrets there. I loved that it had this evocative mystery to it and everything. And I know that is not probably, I assume that is not the case for people who explore every single corner of it and 112% it. I assume that if you've done that, you know everything about it, because that's everything. But I love the sense of there being stuff beyond me and beyond what I've interacted with. And there's rooms and people and things like that I will never discover because I just never went that way, and that's not part of my path. And I loved that, and that happened to me as well when I played Breath of the Wild for the first time.
I see the same thing.
Yeah, it was like there's stuff out there that, because I'm not doing everything, like it still at the end of the game felt like, wow, there's a lot of world out there that I haven't engaged with. There's secrets and stories and things like that I don't know about. And I, for one, adore that sensation. Going back to real life, that's the way I feel real life is too. Like, and in every house in my neighborhood, there are stories that I will never know about, and that's just exciting to me, and makes me feel small in some way, but also not like in a negative way, just like it just makes the world feel vast and mysterious and interesting.
Yeah.
And I love that when I'm playing a video game that does that kind of a thing.
Yeah. I think it's kind of what I think that's kind of, that says better kind of that experience that I was having with Dark Souls. It was like this, I don't actually know everything that's going on. And there's something really cool about that unknowableness and that mystery.
That's actually an excellent point. You kind of blew my mind there about getting to the end of the game, and like it's so much mystery in the game, but like that it feels kind of cool. And I've definitely had moments in the game where sometimes I get stuck in a game and it's like, okay, this is a fun game and all, but I would have more fun if I was not in this spot forever.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I look up like how to get past, and then there are some moments, I do regret finding a little bit more about a game, or knowing even that something was possible in a game, because I don't know, maybe it's an ignorance is bliss kind of thing. You get to the, if it's just mystery, if it's just like, oh, I don't know what I missed, but like it's cool that it feels like the world is much bigger and I had this small part of it, but this still experience that was meaningful. Whereas if it's like, everything that you miss, and it's like, oh man, you get that fear of missing out. And
yeah.
It's like, it becomes, instead of, you playing your own experience, you going through your own life, then you're constantly thinking, what is the best way to play this game? Or like, what's the best path? Like I've seen people ask like, oh, what's the best path in Dark Souls? Or like, what's the best path? And I don't think that's the way to play those games. That it's like, you're trying to literally optimize this experience that's supposed to be a bit more, ephemeral. It's supposed to be, just kind of, whatever you choose in your own experience, and that it's not going to be, you're not going to be able to do everything. There's something beautiful about that.
I love it. I think it's wonderful.
I quite agree. Something interesting that I've noticed about all of these games that we've talked about, like Hollow Knight and Dark Souls and Breath of the Wild and Bloodborne, shares these qualities. I myself never go back to these games once I'm done with them. I have a hard time re-engaging. Like, I've thought many times about going back to Hollow Knight, and I have gone back to Breath of the Wild to goof around with some of the physics and there's some goofy stuff to do there. But to try to have that experience again, I thought about like going back to Hollow Knight. It's like, I already did that. I already had that discovery, wow, crazy experience. And I just don't know that for me, that's that can be replicated.
Yeah. Well, it's like
How
it's
do
like
you
what
guys
we
feel
were,
about that?
like what we were talking about with Celeste. That that story is this complete experience, and it's a lot of it is kind of based on your successes and your failures and your connection with what's going on. That you when it's over, it's done. You don't feel like you need to go back and do it again, or it's not the same.
Yeah. Well, and I had a couple thoughts, if you don't mind me
Please.
taking over for a second. One thing is that I think that there are different approaches to these games that people find satisfying and gratifying. So, like Celeste, for example, is partly about the story, but also has very clearly been built for speedrunners,
Which is
a completely different approach. And so and I think the joy that I don't know, I've never really been much of a speedrunner ever, but I think that part of what they get out of it is the joy of mastering the system so well that they can accomplish to push themselves and reach a new record kind of thing. That's not really my take. That's not really my approach to games or life or anything. But I can understand that, and I guess I do a little bit of that depending on the game, but so that's one thought. Another thought I'm having is that I think that games have different approaches to creating that sense of mystery. And I think it depends on the kind of game that you might be playing, and when by mystery, I mean like unknowableness.
Yeah.
And so in a lot of these games that we mentioned, Hollow Knight, Dark Souls, Breath of the Wild, all these things, I think that ultimately it is finite.
Yeah.
It is something of an illusion, like at some point it is going to be, if you keep playing it for long enough, eventually you will find everything. And maybe that's why you mentioned in your case that like it's difficult for you to go back and re-engage with these things because you have discovered so much of the secrets, and maybe that's part of why it's not as compelling to you.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the wonder of discovery is what took me to Breath of the Wild in the first place, and now that was what drove me, and now that that's not there anymore, it's like, well, I want to play that game anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of a similar thing for me. I picked it up again and I was like, I don't know if I really have the same drive to do this anymore. And I never made a second playthrough like I was planning to do. But there's another way that games do this sometimes, and that is by having literally infinite content, and which is of course not something that you handcraft. It's something that it's systems you set up as a game designer. It's procedural or something like that. Something like Crusader Kings, which I will never stop talking about. Like there's so much going on in the world, and there's so many people out there, and so much going on. There's so many secrets out there, and you will never discover all of them.
Yeah.
And the next time you boot up the game, it'll be a completely fresh set of unknowns and things like that.
Yeah.
And I recognize that there's strengths and weaknesses to both of these approaches, but perhaps that's one of the strengths of the procedural approach, is that it could be something that you could never, as a player, ever discover everything.
It's kind of like in Minecraft. Like you never know what's gonna be out there in Minecraft. You never know what crazy. I mean, usually it's just geological features, but you never know what crazy geological feature you're gonna find, or what cool village, because it's never the same.
Yeah. You can't get a walkthrough on these games.
No.
You cannot have a walkthrough in the other tab or something telling you all of the secrets. You literally are the only person who can discover what's going on in your world, and you have to be the one to do it. You cannot outsource that part of the game. And I love that part of the game, and I don't want to outsource that part of the game. So
yeah.
Anyway, but those are my thoughts. Thank you for giving me the floor for a second there.
Yeah. Aaron, I think you were going to say something. Maybe you weren't. Were you going to say something?
No, I think that includes a thought. Yeah. And I think it's just different games. I think sometimes it's nice to have a complete story and to feel like, oh, I finished something and I can put it away, and like that was this experience I've had. Like I don't know. I don't know if I've ever. I don't know about ever. Like when I finish a book, I've rarely reread the same book again. Like a non or fiction story.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe a similar thing with stories and games. But then you do have these big sandbox games that you can continually go back and have a new experience in, or and I think it's just good to have that that we have that choice and that variety.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying. Like they're both super valuable. Like I am forever grateful for The Last of Us, and that one time that I played it, that will probably be the last time I play it. It felt complete, and I feel like I've been bettered by it and everything. But now it's time to move on to something else. Different kinds of things.
And real quick, I was just thinking too. I think this is a timely discussion too, because I keep seeing the argument that people kind of want a literal, I don't know, value exchange for their game. It's like, oh, however much this game costs, like, should be how much time I put into this game, or because video games are becoming a bit more expensive as new consoles are coming out and technology is improving. And people's like, oh, well, I'm not paying $70 for a 20-hour game, or these things. And I just don't think that way with video games. I think that an experience can be valuable, whether it's a long one or whether it's a short one, whether it's a condensed story, that you play through, the way like I said, I recently played through the game Hellblade. That's about an 8-hour game, but. I'd pay full price for that game. I think it's a fantastic experience that I'll remember for a long time. But then you do have a game like Minecraft that you can have thousands of hours into. That it's
also half the price of it.
It's also
these other ones. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I feel the same way about movies too. I'll see people be like, "Oh, it's like a 3-hour movie. Well, that's better value for your money." It's like, no, not necessarily.
I've seen way too many 3-hour movies to believe that is the case. I love a lot of 3-hour movies.
It's like,
but
it's quality over quantity. I guess that's the simple thing: quality over quantity.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you completely. I don't think that it should be a ratio of X hours of gameplay to the dollar. I think that's a little bit.
I've heard people describe it. It's like, it's like $1 an hour for this video game. It's like, what? Like,
yeah, but can you quantify the joy or the enlightenment? It's not an arcade. Yeah.
Like, I mean, I play a 10-hour game and it sticks with you, like The Last of Us. For instance, I think about that game frequently. Like, can you measure the value it gives you throughout the rest of your life?
Yeah,
like the experience.
Yeah.
Think of a really good meal you've had. That didn't last long, but you still think back fondly on it, or just the joy it brought you in the moment. It's like, this is worth my time and money. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited to talk to you guys about next month's game, because I think it falls into a lot of this category.
I'm excited to play it.
Yeah. I really want to hear your thoughts about it, because I think a lot of what we talked about here will be relevant then.
That's Outer Wilds, January's special episode.
Yep. But for now, I think it's time we moved on to the final portion of our show. Thank you both very much for your thoughts. I've really enjoyed this discussion. It's made me think a lot.
Thanks for the topic. I enjoy not knowing, what we're going to talk about, and then just launch discussion.
This conversation is going to be sticking with me, and I'm going to be thinking about it for a while too. This is thought-provoking. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was worth a couple dollars. No, I jest. Well, it's we'll move on. Move on to the final portion of our show, which is titled "Think of a Good Game."
And you guys do that so much better than I do.
I mean, Aaron's the originator of it. I don't think anybody can do it quite as well as he can.
We should have like a soundbite of him doing it so that we can just push the button every time.
Zach, would you share your gaming recommendation?
Whoa, give me a sec. I have to pull up my notes because I forgot what it was.
Good.
So maybe do somebody else.
Okay, Aaron, do you want to do that? I know I called on you first for gaming.
Sure, yeah. So before I discovered, this little indie game, Cyberpunk, I tried. I started this other big RPG game, which is Dragon Age Origins.
Oh, real?
Yeah. It's. I don't think I've ever played a BioWare game. They did the Dragon Age games. They did the Mass Effect games.
Yeah.
A lot of games are, they kind of, people talk about the choices and the RPG elements in them. This game, I believe, was made in 2009, and so even before Skyrim. And so going from right before I was playing the game, I was playing Control, which we talked about, which is really pretty looking game. And so jumping into Dragon Age is like, whoa, okay, that looks a bit rough. A little rough around the edges, a little blocky. And in the fight mechanics, it's kind of the action is interesting. It's like a third person action RPG, but then the combat's like real time strategy. Like basically, you just click on the spot and your dudes fight, and you either win or die, depending on your gear or whatever. But I recommend it because even with all kind of the janky graphics or simplistic game mechanics, I found myself really getting into the game and into the story. Like, there's this little kind of opening prologue moment, and in the first hour or so of the game, some really good character moments, a really moving tragedy that kind of happens. Actually thought the characters' expressions were better. I don't know, more animated, more interesting than in Control, which was pretty
wow.
Yeah, it was. That game kind of had some wonky facing animation, but anyway, just a little old RPG, and I was just like, oh, but there's like still some really cool stuff here. So I don't know, check out those old games, and Dragon Age Origins, not a bad one.
It's good to me.
Right on. Thanks.
I'm ready now, by the way.
Do it.
I checked my notes.
Okay. Thanks.
So there's a movie called World War Z, and there is a game called World War Z, and I don't think they have really much to do with each other except that they have zombies in them. And usually movie franchise games are not very good. Just like movies based on games are not very good. But haven't figured out that relationship, I guess. But World War Z is this the game is great. It's so much fun. It's this third person shooter game, but you play it with friends is like kind of the idea. Like, you can't play it by yourself, but the idea is you play it with friends, and you just go through these very specific guided missions guided is not the right word. They're railroady missions. Yeah. Like, you just go, you're clearing out these areas of zombies and trying to get to an objective or something like that. And I don't think this is really much a game about like choices and consequences. It's more like for me, since I played it with friends exclusively, it's a game about forming a cohesive, well-oiled machine of a squad. And that was fun. Figuring out like how the strategies and tactics that we were going to take in together and everything. That was the fun. The fun was figuring it out together, and like, we throw ourselves against a mission on a difficulty that we weren't ready for. We'd fail, and we'd like regroup and talk, and like, it's just a fun team game. It was fun being a part of a team in that game. And so for that reason, a good team game, in my opinion, World War Z. Quite good. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's great.
Thanks, Zach. I love that game too.
We'll have to play that sometime.
Yeah, I was so surprised. Hey, maybe we should try out this zombie game. It looks like it might be kind of fun. And then, I logged 40 hours on that game just playing with other people. Yeah, so it was great. Tons of fun. My turn. I'm going to recommend a game I don't think either of you guys have played. It's called Hob.
Bob.
I think you've seen me.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
by Runic Games. It is it's kind of top-down sort of. It's a kind of far-removed perspective, fantastic kind of sci-fi fantasy action adventure game. I think it is beautiful. The animations are super satisfying. It's just it's a visual delight, and it feels really good to play. It's really responsive and stuff. It's a little buggy, but it's this really cool little. It's like about 10 hours adventure game that I had a really good time with. It's yeah, it's interesting.
Cool.
It's fun. Try it out if you want to. If you don't, then don't.
There's a big puzzle element in that game too, isn't there?
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of puzzles, which, to be frank, was probably my least favorite part of the game. But it's a lot of fun. The way the world kind of opens up, you're on like this world that kind of gets built as you explore it. So when a new area opens up, it quite literally rises from the ground. It's pretty fun. It's interesting.
It's neat.
It's got an interesting story too. So check that one out if you want to.
And both your games, where'd you find them? Did you just play them on Steam or?
I played World War Z on Epic.
Mm-hmm. It's also available on Game Pass.
Is it? Yeah, it's on Game Pass right
Game
now.
Pass. Hob, I also played through Epic. So, yeah. Thanks, Epic, for the free games.
Oh man, Epic's free games. Yeah.
I played so many games I never thought I would play, and because it's always free. Now it's in my library. Like, well, I guess I'll try it out.
This next couple of weeks, they're doing like a free game a day.
Oh yeah, I gotta grab one.
Oh yeah,
I forgot about that.
They did that last year too, and it ended off with Grand Theft Auto 5, I think. But they were just
Oh wow, they throw in some big
cool
games.
Yeah, it's just cool stuff. Cool stuff. I'm excited.
Cool. I think Game Pass 2 next week is also merging with EA Play, which has a ton of games on it.
Right.
I believe Dragon Age Origins is part of that. I bought it through GOG, which is CD Projekt Red's service, but I think that might be coming to Game Pass in a couple of weeks too.
Sweet.
Right on. Well, awesome.
Cool.
Excited for that.
Me too.
Looking forward to everything. Looking forward to our next episode where we will be talking about Crusader Kings 3, discussion led by Zach.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think that concludes everything for today. Thanks for listening in. And join us next week for some Crusader King. I can speak. Crusader Kings 3 fun.
Yeah, and we should add it will be a bit of a longer episode. The last one we did with Celeste was just kind of a normal episode, but we've decided for the in-depth, deep dive into these games, they're going to be a little bit longer. It's more like an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So yeah. But thanks for listening to Games by Design. It's been us, and we're glad you were here.
Me too.
Go ahead.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.